Welcome to Nosotros, the San Antonio Express News podcast that explores the people, ideas, and movements that shape our communities. I'm Nora Lopez, executive editor at the Express News, and my guest today is really someone who needs no introduction in San Antonio, former Mayor Henry Cisneros. Henry has been a trailblazer in public service, economic development, and international diplomacy. He was the first Hispanic American mayor of a major U.S. city, and later he served as Secretary of Urban and Housing and Urban Development under President Bill Clinton. And he has been a visionary voice in reshaping San Antonio's economy. Most recently, just last week, Henry was awarded the Order of the Rising Sun by the government of Japan. That's the highest honor that can be bestowed on a non-citizen in Japan. And that was in recognition of your decades-long efforts to build ties between Japan and the United States. So we'll talk a little bit about that legacy today and a lot more, the future of San Antonio, the challenges of Texas politics, the vision behind Project Marvel, and maybe a little bit of advice for the city's new leadership. Henry, thank you for being with us
Nora,
today.
thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's start with the award itself. Tell me, what was that moment like sitting there at the Toyota Experience Center receiving this highest of honors?
Well, I guess the key moment of this whole process has been the day that I was notified that the emperor had selected me for the award, because it's not an award that you apply for or campaign for. It just comes from the emperor and his staff surveying people who have interfaced with Japan. And so we had some months to sort of prepare for the event itself, the ceremony, which was a lot of work because we had strong attendance. We wanted to convey several messages. One is appreciation for everybody who's worked on the Japan relationship, which began in the 1980s, and then also to highlight the Toyota as like the highest manifestation of what we've accomplished with Japan, although we have 20 Japanese companies now functioning in San Antonio. And then also I wanted to celebrate in a way that carried messages. And one of them was that one way we can celebrate in this city is to highlight our Philharmonic Orchestra and let them help build the spirit of the day, and also show off their new home at the Scottish Rite Cathedral. So there were a lot of tracks here.
Yes, a lot of pieces had to be worked out.
But honestly, it was a great honor. I truly, and this sounds like, political words, but I truly decided early on this was in recognition of a lot of people's work. So I tried my very best to, in my remarks, make it an award presented to people who had been present from the beginning when we first started the Japan effort in 1981, the year that I became mayor. We started outreach to Japan. By 84, 85, we were going to Japan. We had the good fortune of meeting Mrs. Naoko Shirani, a baroness from the Mitsui family who actually adopted San Antonio and took us to meet Dr. Morita of Sony and Dr. Toyota of Toyota. And of course, as we know, 16 years later, that resulted in the largest automotive plant in the world by size, physical size. And it employs tens of thousands of people in San Antonio between the plant and its suppliers. So it was a big day. We had a VIP meeting that the Consul General wanted to have with leaders of San Antonio. Then we had the conferral ceremony, which is, they like to use the word solemn. And then we had the evening concert, which was a tribute in the form of Japanese music and American music. And there were a lot of tears in the room because people were really moved.
Amazing.
Yeah. Music can speak to people in ways that words cannot. And on a day like that, when you pick the music to really represent like the core of a country, there's a song a folk song the Japanese love called sakura, and that means the cherry blossoms, when the cherry blossoms are blossoming. And people are moved to tears when they hear that old traditional folk song. So it was an exciting day all the way around.
Did you shed a tear or two?
I don't think I did because I was busy. But
Imagine there was a lot of pomp and circumstance.
well, they as I say, they use the word solemn. Yeah. Everybody's in dark suits. It almost feels funereal. Dark suits and dark dresses, and then everything is very precise. They told me early on, do not thank the consul general or the Japanese government. This is from the emperor. Oh. And all the pomp and circumstances related because it's coming from the emperor. So gold background on the stage and pictures of the emperor on the stage.
Very ornate.
Very formal.
Yes. Well, I wish I had been there. It must have been really, really nice.
Well, the Express News did a nice job.
We covered it.
Yeah.
Of course,
big time.
Because it was a big deal, not just for San Antonio, but for Texans as well.
Well, thank you for that. On the very first trip that I took to Japan, I made it an Austin-San Antonio trip. Mm-hmm. That was 1985. And it's because I had read the Japanese really understand pairing up of cities to collaborate, like in the Tokyo region, for example, Yokohama and others team up together. They actually had written a book at that time called the Technopolis Strategy, and it was cities collaborating on technology. So we went with Austin, and I've tried to make everything we do with Japan collaborative. Eventually, Mrs. Shirani, who we retained, also became the representative for Texas. So she opened an office in Tokyo that was the Texas San Antonio office in Japan. Wow. So we've tried to make this a positive Texas experience, and I think we've succeeded.
And is it everything you envisioned way back then, what's happening in the South Side?
Well, if you'd have told me that we were going to land an automotive plant, because there are legends about how San Antonio tried to get automotive plants in the 1930s and 40s and was rejected, in part because some of the local leadership didn't want the competition of union jobs, wages, and so forth. So if you'd have told me that we were going to get an automotive plant, from the highest quality, largest automotive company in the world at the time, if you'd have told me that it was going to go on the South Side, if you'd have told me it was going to go into the poor Southwest School District, and that they were going to put in place supplier firms and recruit San Antonio business leaders to create those firms that now are, $500 million, $800 million revenues. If you'd have told me that all that was going to happen, I would have said, no, you're dreaming. It all happened.
No way.
Every one of those checked the boxes.
That's incredible. I mean, it really has shaped San Antonio, and we're on.
Well, I tell you how much it shaped San Antonio. First of all, we had a tiny manufacturing sector, and I used to speak all the time to the San Antonio Manufacturers Association, and it was a small organization with some companies that made cabinets, some companies that were food production. But now we have not just Toyota, but what was called Navistar when they came. It's the old International Harvester truck maker. They're here, right? They're called International again. Then we have JCB, which is an English tractor maker for tractors within plants like forklifts and such. And then you have Tesla just up the road, and we have massive automotive cluster in northern Mexico. Some estimate about 400,000 jobs in Guanajuato, León, Querétaro, etc. So we are now literally the center of a manufacturing region that, in my fondest dreams, this is what I would have hoped for. And here it is.
And when you were in the middle of all this and courting them and, proposing things, what was the turning point? At what point did you know okay, they're going to commit to San Antonio. And
I really didn't for a long time. Certainly one turning point was not going it alone when Mrs. Shirani agreed to represent us. Now, we wouldn't understand this in the American system. She's a baroness. The Mitsui family, anybody who knows Japan knows the name Mitsui means Mitsui Trading, Mitsui Shipbuilding, Mitsui Aircraft, Mitsui banking and trading. And she was of that family.
Huge.
She was of that family, well educated in England, etc. Why she fell in love with our city is never clear to me. But she did. And she adopted us. And let me just tell you, I went with her to Japan, which I went every year.
Right.
But on this particular trip, I left Tokyo and flew in a helicopter to a place called Kurosawa, which is a kind of the Hamptons or Newport, Rhode Island kind of place of the old wealth of Japan to visit Dr. Toyota at his home. Okay. Who in the U.S., what mayor gets that opportunity? It just doesn't happen.
Well, not just with mayor, but Henry, you are a product of the West.
That's right. That's right.
And
so who gets that opportunity? But she got us those kinds of opportunities. So that was a kind of a turning point. We were now in hot cotton, right?
Wow.
So the other piece is that we started then to get some businesses. Our first business was a Japanese medical equipment diagnostic company. So that happened, and that was good. But then years later, Toyota made the decision it needed another plant in the United States to manufacture trucks, the Tundra and their Tacoma. It's now the Sequoia SUVs. Right. But they were down, they thought of a lot of places, and they were down to West Memphis, Arkansas, which is across the river from Memphis.
I remember this is coming back to me from...
Right. And the reason is because FedEx is on the Memphis side. And that would have been parts movement back and forth by plane. And somewhere in Texas. And then they honed in on San Antonio. So the combination of her pushing at the top level, right, and we doing a good job to sell San Antonio at our level resulted in the decision to come. So I again, it's like a dream, that this would happen.
The vision that you
without a doubt. There's 10,000 people getting good wages between the plant and the suppliers. There's 23 supplier firms. Normally, Toyota does business with their suppliers, and then they move their goods in by train or by truck. But here they decided to do something different and put the 23 suppliers on a campus. So
everybody's there.
Every one of those firms would have justified an Express News business page article, right? But we got 23 of them at the same time.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And then a lot of our young people now have good jobs, and that's only going to grow. Look, the relationship with Toyota, and I wanted to feature Toyota in last week's ceremonies because I want them to do more here. And there's several ways they can do more here. First of all, they are subject to the tariffs that are this battle that's happening in Washington. And one way to avoid the tariffs is to manufacture in the United States. So it's logical for them to manufacture. And if they do, it's logical to manufacture in a place where they already are, right? Because they own a lot of ground here. That's number one. Number two, they're going to make changes in their vehicles because they're going to electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. So that's new technologies, new factory space. Thirdly, Toyota is not just automotive anymore. They're a leader in robotics and other AI-related things.
Right.
So we want all we can get here, including those very high technology and good paying jobs. So yeah, it's absolutely met every hope. I can't imagine San Antonio without it.
It's yes, absolutely. It did sort of like a lot of people point to Kelly Air Force as being the one that sort of helped bring up the Mexican-American community. And now we have Toyota, bringing up.
Kelly Field in its day was called the reason there was a Mexican-American middle class in San Antonio. And there were neighborhoods on the south side and where I grew up on the west side where every house on the block, the breadwinner, worked at Kelly or Lackland or Brooks or Fort Sam Houston. The civil service did a tremendous job. Well, we lost Kelly, but it's interesting. Kelly, now Port SA, has the same number of jobs it did when Kelly closed. Only higher paying jobs. They're not civil service jobs. They're Boeing jobs and Standard Aero jobs and Pratt & Whitney jobs. So we've done very well the last few years.
San Antonio is very positioned, curiously enough, on the global stage, and I don't think we often think about ourselves that way.
Well, we are, but we have another major advantage, and that is, we're in Texas. And Texas is arguably a hotspot, not only of the United States, job creation, wage growth, but worldwide. We register on any world analysis of where the booming place is. You would have to put Texas. And I co-authored a book with David Hendricks, who you know well, and several other people. And that book was called The Texas Triangle. And it talks about this pod of cities from Dallas-Fort Worth in the north and Houston in the east and Austin, San Antonio in the southwest corner. Right. And there are 35 counties that group around those points on that triangle out of 254 counties in Texas. But those 35 produce 66% of the population of Texas.
All the urban.
Yeah. And, well, not all the urban, because we have 28 metros. Corpus and Lubbock and Amarillo and El Paso and Laredo. But just those three are 66% of the population of Texas and 75+% of the GDP of Texas. So we're blessed by position. We're further blessed that our partner on that corner is Austin, which is arguably one of the fastest growing places in the country. And we're getting a lot of spillover from Austin. We have work to do, and we've got a second book coming out. Okay. Also, David's helping with that, called Mega Region. It'll be out in September. And it really focuses on the dynamics of Austin, San Antonio. Yeah.
You haven't been in public office in, almost 30 years?
Well, I stopped being Secretary of Housing in 2000, so 25 years.
Yeah, 25 years. But you remain very active on public infrastructure projects, and not just in San Antonio, but...
Well, my company...
Yeah, your company...
is companies, because I have one entity that raises institutional capital for housing that operates out of the West Coast. My son-in-law runs that. I'm vice chairman of the umbrella company for the country's largest woman and minority-owned municipal finance firm, Siebert Williams Shank, based in New York. And then my son and I joined others in creating a company that invests in infrastructure. We're invested in JFK Airport.
Right, I've read that.
We're invested in LaGuardia Airport and other projects of that scale. So, the rationale for that is I decided when I left HUD and left Univision that what I really wanted to do was things that would allow me to have an impact the same way a public official might, right? But do it in a private capacity so that nobody tells me when I have to retire, when I have to move on. I can work as long as I possibly can.
Well, I think a lot of people thank you for that. Now, locally, you've been a very strong advocate for the San Antonio Arboretum, and just recently you announced the master plans for that. How is that coming along? How do you think that's
I'm really excited about it. It's been almost providential because we could not have fallen into where we are on our own. But a 170-acre golf course that had closed fell in our lap. And it couldn't be anything else because most of it is in the floodplain. So it couldn't be sold for some developer use, housing use, or whatever. So the developer sold it to us for a very reasonable price with the help of Brooks. And we added 18 acres that was outside the floodplain that could have been housing, but we bought it. And another 18 acres on the other side that fronts on Southwest Military Drive. So we now have a good entrance. So we have over 200 acres of beautiful South Texas. I mean, imagine this. If we had to go out and create an arboretum out of South Texas brush country, we'd need tractors to clear the land. But we inherited a golf course with 18 fairways and high ground where the tees were and flat spaces where the greens were. And it's like giving you a palette to work with to build an arboretum, which is like a museum of trees. Yeah. It's like, let's create a place where people can go see the heritage trees, the 50-foot tall, 250-year-old trees. We have 40 of those on the site along the Salado Creek. So this is going to be something where people, it's not a park, it's not a soccer field, it is an arboretum. And they exist all across the country. Boston just celebrated the 150th anniversary of Arnold Arboretum, which it runs with Harvard University. And it's an unbelievably gorgeous place. I went through it, been through it a couple of times, but went through it in the fall when the trees are orange and red. Yeah, I would recommend it.
Well, I can't wait until
it's going to be nice.
Is complete. I think
it's going to be a long time before it's, quote, complete.
Right.
But we're going in phases because this is not a public facility. Therefore, we don't have access to large public capital. We will ask for contributions from the city bond issue and things like that. But so we have to go in measured steps to build it out.
Henry, how do we protect the green spaces like this while still, trying to meet housing and economic?
Well, you know what? San Antonio is pretty good about understanding its relationship to green and relationship to nature. We have, how many parks would you guess the San Antonio Parks Foundation has responsibility for? 250. 250 parks.
Okay, I would have guessed like 30-something.
250 parks.
Amazing.
All kinds of parks. And some of them huge, like McAllister Park or Breckenridge Park or Hardberger Park. Some of them smaller.
Small pocket gardens.
Some of them brand new that are wild space that's been contributed out on the edge of the city, et cetera, like Government Canyon and such. But we understand green. We like outdoors in San Antonio. And we have a very, very nice tree cover.
Despite the heat.
But I tell people, a few years ago, the governor of New Mexico came to visit in the years that I was mayor. And he flew in the government jet from Santa Fe to San Antonio, Governor Anaya. And when he landed, I went to the door of his plane to welcome him. And he said, Henry, I just came over the New Mexico brush country, the Texas, West Texas desert country, the rough plains to the west, and then I saw green, and the plane started to descend. And it was very clear he was flying into a place that has a great tree cover that we take for granted. But think of it. We're on the edge of the Balcones Escarpment, the Edwards Aquifer, and the water flows southward. All the springs that feed the San Antonio River, the Cibolo, the Salado, the Alazan, the Martinez, all of the creeks flow south. So the south of San Antonio is this like huge trees on the creeks.
Yeah. I grew up on the Texas-Mexico border, and my parents still lived in the valley, so I really enjoy the drive from here to the valley. I really do. You still see a lot of these little rolling hills.
Yeah.
It's just, It's just amazing. And when you're driving at sunset, oh my God.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
It's just gorgeous.
It is beautiful. Well, we need the green space, and the Arboretum is going to be one more addition, and not an insignificant one, because 200 acres is meaningful.
Yeah.
And if we husband it correctly, if our stewardship is right, then think of it. We're going to try to put cherry trees in there as well. So the cherry trees will bloom in March. The dogwoods will bloom in April. The crepe myrtles will bloom in June and July. Then we'll get maples from lost maples and other trees that turn orange.
Cool.
Yeah, every part of the year there's something to see.
It's going to be wonderful. Well, let's get a little bit more into, what's going on in our city. I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspective on our new mayor, Gina Ortiz-Jones, who seems to be having a little bit of a rocky start with the council. They're butting heads.
I wouldn't call it a rocky start. I'm a fan of Mayor Jones because I see, and I didn't know her before, but I see some personal toughness and a kind of vision, and she wants to hold her ground, and she's asking for a certain kind of discipline and mutual respect on the council, and I think all of that's good.
Yeah.
I don't see it as rocky. I see it as sort of setting the ground rules in the early period, and I applaud her for it. I don't know her, as I said, but the little bit that I have gotten to know or seen tells me that the way you understand Mayor Jones is to understand the United States military.
Right.
She was in ROTC, in high school, in college, served as an intelligence officer in the Air Force, privy to a lot of important national security information. And then she becomes Undersecretary of the entire United States Air Force, with all that implies: aircraft, strategic bombers, missiles, national security information, personnel issues, on and on, okay? This is a serious person.
Yes.
A qualified person. And this is a person who's bringing some structure, because that's the way her mind works, to the business of being mayor. And I think that can be a good thing. So we'll see how it goes going forward. I don't know her politics well enough to know what is she going to do in this vote or that increase or this or the other. But I guarantee you this: it's going to be process-oriented, it's going to be data-oriented, it's going to be systematic, and I think people will appreciate that. And it's going to be tough also. It's going to be tough. If she says, this is what I have concluded, then I think you can say she's actually studied it and that we have to take it seriously.
Well, I was going to ask you if you had advice for her, but maybe I need to ask you, do you have advice for some of the council members who, are pushing back?
I would say to the city council members, just get serious, because there's not going to be any time for monkey business. She's all business, but it's the city's business, and she's treating the city like the big governmental organization that it is. And I think that's a good thing for us. I feel, and a lot of this obviously is based on the work of our reporters and the stories that we're reporting, but it seems like right now there is a little bit of a disconnect between the city and the county. I mean, just today we had Judge Sakai in our paper noting that he gets more information about Project Marvel from reading the newspaper than the information. Yeah, I don't know why that is.
City.
I don't think you can attribute that to the mayor.
Okay.
Although the mayor can take steps to fix it. But I don't think it's attributable to the mayor today. I think it probably is the two bureaucracies. And there's prerogatives that each of the leaders of the two bureaucracies have. And they put some people in charge of key projects that are sort of guarding them carefully and don't share information. And that's all bad. That's not good.
Yeah.
Especially when we've had some periods when the city and the county seem to collaborate and work well together. But in some ways it's understandable, because this project that they're working on now, Project Marvel, has been so complicated. And we don't know who's on first and who's on second and who's bringing resources and who's not. We would do well to try to simplify things, I think. And that's what I would counsel, is we may have mentioned too many things we're trying to do in one fell swoop. Yes, we need an arena for the Spurs, okay? But at the same time, they're talking about a hotel. They're talking about improvements to the convention center. They're talking about improvements to the Alamo Dome. They're talking about a land bridge to the Alamo Dome.
Right. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And, people who are working hard in their lives don't have time to sit down and do an analysis and figure out what's the first piece here and how do they fit. And so simplifying and dealing with first things first. We know we need to get that Spurs arena done. And the county has set an election now, and there was 4 votes to 1, including Tommy Calvert, who, if there was anybody who would have a problem with it because of the displacement to the Frost Center, but that tells me a lot that they're ready to go, and I sincerely hope that our people understand that that's a simple task. Let's get that one done. The Spurs are putting $500 million and backing up some other commitments with another $500 million. That's a very substantial commitment from the Spurs,
yes.
Right? And let's face it, there are other cities in the country that think they deserve an NBA basketball team. Seattle has been without one for 20 plus years. Las Vegas just ripped off the Oakland Raiders football team and the Oakland A's baseball team, and they have a hockey team, and they're salivating for a basketball team. And then you have Austin up the road. So let's not fool around with our only professional team and the mainstay of keeping us in the professional leagues arena.
I feel like every now and again there's a groundswell of fear, even though, we never hear directly from the Spurs organization that they're looking to move or anything. So I just wonder, is that just our own
I think it's probably
complex that we
think it's probably because we read the papers and we see what owners are doing around the country.
Yeah.
And we revere our owners, and they've brought us 5 championships, and they've invested in the Spurs over and over, but they're business people.
Yeah.
And I've heard Peter Holt say the NBA did an analysis of every one of the 30 cities in the NBA and surveyed what do fans think of the, quote, fan experience. What that means is, how do you enjoy it? What do you do before the game? What do you do after? San Antonio ranked 30 out of 30. So they deserve better than that. Yeah. Okay, driving to the Frost Center, going to a game, being satisfied with whatever hot dogs are being sold in the building, and then getting back in your car is not the fan experience that the modern fan looks for. On the other hand, having an arena downtown, people come after work and they go have a meal, and then they come to the game, and then they say, would you like to have a drink afterwards? And they walk 2 blocks to some places in the Hemisphere grounds or around. That begins to be the fan experience that you get in Sacramento, where their arena is downtown, or you get in San Francisco, where the new arena is downtown, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're Boston. The Boston Garden is downtown. Washington is smack downtown.
And this is exactly what Project Marvel is trying to address.
Exactly. Los Angeles Staples Center, smack downtown,
So the commissioners yesterday voted to put this to the voters. It's probably going to be the only chance that voters are going to get to sort of give their opinion of this project. Do you think it passes?
I think it's going to take work. It should pass, and I'm hopeful that it'll pass, and I'm prepared to do whatever I can to try to get it to pass. But I think things have gotten overly complicated with all these pieces we were describing. Yeah. And I think people thought they were going to have to see an increase in their taxes, which is not the case.
Right.
And so there's a lot of explaining. If you're going to put something on the ballot in November, you better spend all of August, September, and October explaining clearly in every medium you possibly can.
Right. Well, as a big Spurs fan, I'm definitely in favor of doing what we need to do to keep the Spurs
It's
here.
the right thing to do.
I just can't even imagine San Antonio without the Spurs.
It would be a grievous blow to our city. And it would frankly kill a lot of other things that we want to do for San Antonio that result in wages increases. Some of these things that we were talking about earlier, people want to come to a real city.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Democratic lawmakers who have fled. They're in Chicago trying to keep the legislature from having a quorum and delay voting on redistricting.
Well, you have to start that conversation with why are they doing it? What stimulated this? And what stimulated this is a decision by the White House conveyed to Governor Abbott that they did the analysis and figured they could pick up possibly five Republican seats, right, by taking voters out of present Republican districts, putting them in other districts and displacing Democratic voters and coming up with 5 additional seats. Now, 5 additional seats on the national composition of the Congress is huge.
Yes.
The last few Congresses have settled into like three vote margins, 2 vote margins, split even with a deciding vote. So to give one side 5 additional seats. Mm-hmm. Okay, now remember, we have a process in America where every 10 years we have a census. And on the basis of the census, we, quote, redistrict, okay? To stop in the middle of the 5 years, exactly the middle, 2025, and say, no, we don't want to wait until the 10th year decennial census. We want to do it now because we think we can pick up 5 seats in time for next year's congressional election, for the midterm elections in 26. That's breaking the norms, right? Now, what are the Democrats supposed to do? Just roll over and take it? Or are they going to use every device that they possibly can to slow, stop, draw attention to, get allies in other places? So I think they're doing what you sometimes have to do when you're in a fight, which is actually fight. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm chairman of something called the Bipartisan Policy Center in Washington. We had a meeting this morning on legislative matters, and I told the BPC, we need to put out an explainer to the American people, which we do periodically when we have to explain something from a bipartisan standpoint, that this is not the norm of having, redistricting in the middle. Now, you could say, well, we need to, if you were a Republican, you might say, we need to do whatever it takes. The future of the country is at stake. We need those additional 5 votes because we need to have President Trump keep command of the House. Okay, I get it. There's a logic. There's a political logic to that. But sometimes you have to respect the norms. You have to respect the system and fight hard, but within some rules. Mm-hmm. And you can't just break the rules and say the means justifies the end, you know, or the end justifies the means, I should say. The end, maintaining control of the Congress, justifies whatever we have to do. It's not the best way to do things. And by the way, usually when you do that in politics, it comes back to bite you at some future point when other people say, well, you did it. Now we're going to do it.
I think people are at a loss to try to make sense of it. And I think that some people may be listening to what the governor is saying, that they have vacated their office. They're not fulfilling their responsibilities.
All of that is down the road from the original action that stimulated it. I think you need to go back to, well, why are we going through this in the first place, right? And yes, it can cascade, it can escalate, it can spiral down into a disaster. But why? Let's focus on why we're doing this in the first place.
I think the average person just has a really difficult time trying to understand either side. So I'm very curious to see how all of this will.
Well, I think people understand it. It's not hard to understand. And I think I have great respect for the average voter, and the average voter can get it. The question is, Does it matter? Do they care?
Yeah.
Do they say this is just politics? This is just politicians playing their games?
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
But
hard time caring.
I do think it matters.
Absolutely.
I do think it matters. And I think fundamentally what this is saying is we want to settle the election before we have the election. We don't want to leave this up to the voters. We want to reorganize the table so the election result is set. That's what this is saying.
I'm very curious to see how all of this will be resolved. And
I have no
we'll
idea.
see what happens. Well, because it seems like the Democrats have tried this before, and I don't think that it has always turned out in their favor.
I'm not in communication with the Democrats, the House members that are all over the country. But I suspect what they're saying is we have to do something. And this is one resource that's at our disposal until something else comes along, like somebody makes a mistake, or the court steps in, or something that we don't have just an utter surrender, like a puppy rolling over on its stomach and being completely vulnerable.
Henry, you've worn many hats, from mayor, cabinet secretary, business leader, to international envoy. What continues to motivate you to stay in public service?
Well, I'm really not in, quote, public service because I haven't run for office. I have a lot of respect for the process of running. I think probably my happiest years of my entire life always will have been the years that I was mayor of San Antonio. Nothing matches the sense of having the honor of being elected by your citizens of your hometown to manage their city, our city, and then being able to do the job in such a way that people agree with what you're doing and you keep going. I loved it. Yeah. And but I'm not involved. My primary focus is not public service. It's businesses that I created, but I created them with a view toward doing public good, whether it's building homes or whether it is doing infrastructure, because I always liked that phrase that says you can do good and do well in the process. And if you can find that, then that's a pretty good place to be. And that's kind of where I am with the businesses I have chosen. I chose them specifically because when I was at HUD, I loved the idea of people getting to move into their homes. My favorite days at HUD were when we opened a new project and people came with their eyes wide open, about a better place to live. And we can do that in the private sector, right? And on infrastructure, there's just such a gap, so much to be done in better airports and power grid and broadband and water systems that the public sector cannot do it. There's not enough money. There's not enough debt available to the public sector to do this. So if we find ways where the private sector, private capital, bank capital, corporate capital, insurance capital can be geared to invest in public goods, then that's worth trying to do to, juice the progress of the country. So I love what I'm doing in those respects. And then things like what we can do for our hometown, like the Arboretum, or like the work I'm doing on the west side where we live. We live in what some have called the poorest census tract in the city, the west side, and are coming up with some creative things to do to help people, like working with VIA on the Silver Line that's going to run east-west, for example, like working on homelessness in that area so we don't have homeless people wandering around the streets, and we can change the narrative of the West Side as drugs, crime, addiction, poverty. Yeah. So bottom line is I'm going to be working for as long as I can, and that really is up to the Lord, because the Lord one day will say, I'm stopping you right here.
Well, bless you, Henry, because there's some of us who are just ready to retire.
I don't know what I would do if I retired. I have friends who retired to play golf, and I don't, I'm not sure I understand it.
I tried golf, but yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Henry. Truly, your leadership has helped.
So we're just working. We're just working. We have leaders who we've elected. I support them. Just working, but trying to use the privilege that I've had, the perspective, the access, the networks, the connections, to maybe make that work a little bit more meaningful.
Thank you. Your insights today have given us a lot to think about as we look forward to San Antonio's future. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Nosotros. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast and share it with someone who cares about the future of our city. I'm Nora Lopez. Until next time.